upon each other to help realize. That's why when President Eisenhower became the first American president to visit India, he told your parliament that the welfare of America is bound up with the welfare of India. Over the past several decades, the United States and India have been advancing the vision of greater interdependence, brought closer by administrations of different parties in both of our countries. Having worked for President Biden for over 20 years, I know that his belief in this partnership is longstanding and his commitment to delivering on his promise is unwavering. And during the last 2.5 years, we've transformed the relationship between our countries. We are working closer together on more issues than ever before. From semiconductors to space, from education to food security, the energy, ambition, and potential of our cooperation is boundless. The United States and India have become, as the Prime Minister has put it, indispensable partners. And that partnership, President Biden has said, is a defining relationship of the 21st century. Together, we're promoting greater peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific and around the globe, combating disease, responding to natural disasters, strengthening the maritime security, standing up for the principles at the heart of the United Nations Charter. We're working to safeguard our planet for future generations, developing affordable solar panels and sustainable aviation fuels. We're driving opportunity and innovation from the entrepreneurs powering our economies to the U.S. companies investing in India and vice versa. And the cutting-edge research that we're jointly advancing, from quantum to artificial intelligence, is helping to sustain our technological edge and shaping a digital future that safeguards democratic values. Here in the United States, India is part of our daily lives. We enjoy Drupal Lahiri's novels over samosas. We laugh at the comedies of Mindy Kaling. We dance to the beats of Diljit at Coachella. And yes, Mr. Prime Minister, and I can say this from personal experience, we keep ourselves more or less fit and healthy doing yoga. The United States is endlessly enriched by our thriving Indian diaspora. Doctors, teachers, engineers, business leaders, public servants, almost all of whom, it seemed, were on the White House lawn yesterday to greet you. And so many of whom are here with us today. Leaders, of course, like Vice President Harris, whose mother came from... Coming here to help unlock the secrets of cancer. We're diplomats right here at the State Department, where a man whose father came to America with just a bus ticket and $14 in his pocket rose to become the first United States Indian American ambassador to India. And today, Richard Rahul Verma serves as the Deputy Secretary of State. Highest-ranking Indian American official in the department's history. And, Mr. Prime Minister, that ultimately is maybe the strongest bond that unites us. As you glimpsed in your earliest travels here, whether we call it the American dream, whether we call it the Indian dream, whether it's the son of an immigrant from Jalandhar rising through the State Department, or a tea seller becoming Prime Minister, our people believe profoundly in opportunity. That no matter who we are or where we come from, we can make something more of ourselves. So, please join me in raising a glass to our shared hopes for the future and to the U.S.-India partnership that will help make those hopes a reality. Cheers. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the Vice President of the United States.
Mr. Secretary, Madam Ryan, thank you for hosting us here yet again. It is the honor of Doug and mine to be with you, honoring the friendship and the importance of the relationship between India and the United States. Prime Minister Modi, we are honored to welcome you. We also welcome the members of the President's Cabinet who are here and all of the members of Congress who are here, including Speaker Emerita Pelosi, Chairman McCall, and welcome to all of our distinguished guests. As I look around this room, I am struck by the extraordinary impact Indian Americans have had on our country in every facet of life. Take, for example, the historic number of members of the United States Congress with Indian heritage. Representatives Ami Bera, if you're here, please stand. Camilla Jayapal, Rokana, Raja Krishnamurthy, and Shrikanta. And they're known as the Samosa Caucus, for those of you who do not know. And around our country, we see the impact of Indian Americans from the C-suites of American companies to neighborhood businesses, from the studios of Hollywood to university research labs across our country. So as many of you know, India is a very important part of my life. When my sister Maya and I were growing up, our mother would take us from the Bay Area to India pretty much every other year. And the purpose of those trips were many, including that we would well understand where she came from, what produced her, so that we could spend time with our grandparents, with my uncle and our chitties, and to really understand the love of good idli. And we traveled to visit my grandparents in what was then called Madras. And I will tell you, my grandfather was one of the most favorite people in my life, truly. We were pen pals, in fact, throughout my childhood. And I was the eldest grandchild. And so, as I'm sure many of you know, culturally, to be the eldest has a certain significance. And so I took full advantage of that status in our family. And my grandfather, of course, convinced me, as he did, I think, every one of his grandchildren, that we were his favorite. Yet, on those visits, I was the only member of our family that my grandfather allowed to join him for his morning routine. You see, by the time that we were going there as children, my grandfather was retired from his career as a civil servant. And his morning routine, every morning, consisted of taking long walks on the beach with his retired buddies. And they, as retired civil servants, would debate the issues of the day. So I would hold my grandfather's hand on these walks and listen intently to him and his friends. And I will tell you, as a young girl, I don't think I fully appreciated the essence and the import of the debates that they would have. But I did clearly understand and do recall stories about the freedom fighters and the nation's founding heroes, and about the independence of India. I remember them talking about the importance of fighting corruption and fighting for equality, regardless of one's belief or caste. Throughout these walks, I recall my grandfather teaching me lessons about not just what it means to have a democracy, but to keep a democracy. And I do believe it is these lessons that I learned at a very young age that first inspired my interest in public service. And I look back now and I do fully realize how much these conversations influenced me and my thinking, and how they have guided me ever since. In fact, it is a large part of who I am today. These lessons I learned from my grandfather, P. V. Gopalan, and from the dedication, determination, and courage of his daughter, my mother, Shamala. And it is that being the reason that I stand before you today as Vice President of the United States. The history and teachings in India and of India have not only influenced me, they of course have shaped the entire globe, as Secretary Blinken just described. Throughout history, India has inspired millions of people around the world, whether through philosophy and theology, the power of civil disobedience, or the commitment to democracy. Indeed, as I travel the world as Vice President, I have seen India's global impact firsthand. In Southeast Asia, Indian-made vaccines have saved lives and livelihoods. On the continent of Africa, India's long-standing partnerships support prosperity and security. And throughout the Indo-Pacific, India helps promote a free and open region. I also know of India's extraordinary impact with regard to innovation, medicine, and science. I know this as a daughter of California. I know this as a former district attorney, attorney general, and senator who has worked on technology with leaders in Silicon Valley. And I know this, of course, as a daughter of a scientist. My mother, at the age of 19, arrived in the United States by herself as part of the first wave of Indian students to travel here. She chose UC Berkeley because it was known as being one of the best universities in the world. And growing up, I remember our mother, spending day and night and weekends in the lab. She always asked the big questions and searched for the answers that would be a clue to improving the condition of life. She understood what was possible, unburdened by what has been. And since then, I think about it in the context of the work she did and her studies that have led to advances in breast cancer research. And I think about it in the context of the millions of Indian students who have come to the United States since, to collaborate with American researchers, to solve the challenges of our time, and to reach new frontiers. Indian innovators have made great strides in engineering and computer programming. They've sent a mission to Mars, and they have launched and led technology companies that are global leaders in the areas of autonomous vehicles, robotics, cybersecurity, climate data, and digital finance, all of which can serve to improve the human condition and uplift the people. The point here being, India's global engagement has not only been to the benefit of the people of India, but also to the benefit of the people of the United States and people around the world. So, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for your role of leadership to help India emerge as a global power in the 21st century. You have helped to reinvigorate the Quad. Your leadership of the G20 is making new strides on climate finance, and you have been a proponent of international institutions and global solutions to global challenges. And as a point of personal privilege, as chair of the National Space Council, I thank you for your leadership in space and for our joint work on an Earth science satellite, which will help us address the climate crisis. And I will also thank you because when you and I first met at the White House, I asked you to join the Artemis Accords, a commitment to the safe and transparent use of space. And today I am happy to report, as you have, that you have joined the Artemis Accords. So, Prime Minister Modi, President Joe Biden and I are grateful for your commitment to strengthen the ties and the relationships between the United States and India. And we share that commitment. Under your leadership and that of President Biden, our partnership has become more expansive than it has ever been. Over the past 2.5 years, you and I have advanced cooperation on climate, on clean energy, terrorism, cybercrime, public health, and vaccine production. And during this trip, our countries have launched new areas of cooperation, from artificial intelligence to semiconductors. As we look toward the future, the United States and India, the world's oldest and largest democracies, instinctively turn to each other and are increasingly aligned. So I will close with this, which is a memory, again, of my grandfather and what he taught me on those long walks. And in particular, what he taught me about the nobility of public service. Prime Minister Modi, you and I have both dedicated our careers to the noble work of public service. And so to everyone here today, I say, it is incumbent on each of us, inside of government and outside of government, to continue the fight for progress and to serve the greater good. So I raise a glass to the enduring bonds between our nations and our people, and to our continued work together, all in the service of the greater good. Prime Minister. Cheers.
Vice President Kamala Harris, Second Gentleman Douglas Amhoff, Secretary of State, my friend Anthony Blinken, White House Cabinet Secretary Evan Ryan, सभी सम्मानित प्रतिनिधिगण, फ्रेंड्स, सबसे पहले तो मैं उपराष्ट्रपति कमला हैरिस और सेक्रेटरी ब्लिंकन का इस भव्य स्वागत के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं। आप दोनों ने जो गर्मजोशी भरे शब्द कहे, इसके लिए भी मैं हृदय से आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। आज एक बार फिर स्टेट डिपार्टमेंट में आप सभी के बीच उपस्थित होना मेरे लिए खुशी की बात है। पिछले 3 दिनों में मैंने अनेक बैठकों में हिस्सा लिया, कई विषयों पर चर्चा की। इन सभी बैठकों में एक चीज कॉमन थी, सब एक मत थे कि भारत और अमेरिका के लोगों के बीच मित्रता एवं सहयोग और गहरा होना चाहिए। भारत और अमेरिका के संबंधों की मधुर गीतमाला पीपल टू पीपल टाइज के सुरों से पिरोई गई है। इन संबंधों का उदाहरण हमें कदम कदम पर देखने को मिलता है। उपराष्ट्रपति कमला हैरिस की माताजी डॉक्टर श्यामला गोपालन 1958 में भारत से अमेरिका आई थी। उस समय अधिकांश लोगों के पास फोन नहीं होता था और इसलिए उनकी माताजी हाथ से लिखकर अपने परिवारजनों को पत्र भेजा करती थी और उन्होंने कभी भी भारत से रत्ती भर नाता टूटने नहीं दिया था। एक जीवंतता बनाए रखी थी। जो भी उपलब्ध माध्यम था उसका सर्वाधिक उपयोग भारत को, उनके अमेरिका के जीवन को निरंतर जोड़ने में लगा रहा था। हजारों मीलों की दूरी के बावजूद भी भारत हमेशा उनके करीबी था। मैडम वाइस प्रेसिडेंट, उनकी इस प्रेरणा को आपने आज नई बुलंदियों तक पहुंचाया है। आपकी उपलब्धियां केवल अमेरिका की ही नहीं, भारत और पूरे विश्व की महिलाओं के लिए बहुत बड़ी प्रेरणा है, बहुत प्रेरित करती है। सेक्रेटरी ब्लिंकन, जब मैंने प्रारंभ में सूर और गीतमाला जैसे शब्दों का प्रयोग किया तो मेरा एक इशारा आपकी तरफ भी था। पूरा विश्व आपकी डिप्लोमेटिक स्किल्स को तो जानता ही है और मैं तो भली भांति जानने लगा हूं। आपके म्यूजिकल टैलेंट के चर्चे भी बहुत हैं। हजारों मीलों का सफर तय करते हुए गंभीर से गंभीर मसलों के बीच संगीत को आपने जगह दी है। यह हम सभी के लिए बहुत प्रेरक है। हमारी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप को मजबूत करने में आपका बहुत महत्वपूर्ण योगदान है। इसके लिए मैं आपको हृदय से बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूं। फ्रेंड्स, 2014 में मेरी यात्रा के समय मेरे प्रिय मित्र राष्ट्रपति बाइडेन भी यहां स्टेट डिपार्टमेंट में मेरे साथ थे। उस समय उन्होंने भारत और अमेरिका की साझेदारी को अ प्रॉमिस ओवर द होराइजन बताया था। 9 वर्षों के इस अंतराल में हमने बहुत ही लंबी और खूबसूरत यात्रा की है। हमने डिफेंस और स्ट्रेटेजिक क्षेत्रों में आपसी सहयोग के नए आयाम जोड़े हैं। हम नई और उभरती टेक्नोलॉजी के क्षेत्र में नए विश्वास के साथ काम कर रहे हैं। हम ट्रेड के लंबित और मुश्किल मुद्दों का समाधान कर रहे हैं। क्वाड और I2U2 जैसे नए फ्रेमवर्क के साथ हम मिलकर के बहुत कुछ प्रगति कर रहे हैं। धरती हो या आकाश, समुद्र की गहराइयां हो या अंतरिक्ष की ऊंचाइयां, भारत और अमेरिका एक साथ काम करते दिख रहे हैं। सही मायने में प्रॉमिस ओवर द होराइजन आज न तो प्रॉमिस तक सीमित है और न ही होराइजन तक सीमित है। आज हम जिस मुकाम पर पहुंचे हैं, जिन उपलब्धियों पर हम गर्व कर रहे हैं, आप सबके सपनों और अथक मेहनत का परिणाम है। इसके लिए मैं आप सभी का हृदय से बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं।